Have you ever felt ignored by God? Have you looked at the news, the violence, the injustice, and even at your own heart, and wondered why evil seems to be winning? Why do the corrupt prosper while the righteous suffer? Why does faith grow weaker, darkness grows louder, and heaven seems silent? If those questions have ever crossed your mind, stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you see God's silent suffering and faith itself. And before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who might be struggling spiritually right now. You never know whose faith could be strengthened by this message. There was a man in the Bible who dared to ask God the very questions most people are afraid to say out loud. He didn't speak to the crowd first. He spoke directly to God, not with pride, not with rebellion, but with the broken heart of a son trying to understand his father. His name was Habakkuk, and the conversation he had with God became one of the most honest, intense, and surprising dialogues in all of Scripture. This is not just an ancient story. This is your story. It's the battle between faith and doubt, between what we believe about God and what we see happening around us. Habakkuk lived in Judah during a dark time. The nation that once followed God's laws had fallen into corruption, violence, and injustice. Leaders were dishonest, the innocent were oppressed, and society seemed numb to evil. Habakkuk looked around and could not understand how a just God could allow so much wickedness without intervening. His soul was troubled, his faith shaken, his mind full of questions, yet he refused to stay silent. Have you ever prayed with all your heart and felt like the only answer you got was silence? His book begins with a cry. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? This is not cold theology, this is burning pain. It's not unbelief, it's faith fighting to survive. Habakkuk was not walking away from God. He was holding on to him in the middle of confusion. He describes violence, injustice, and oppression. He says the law is paralyzed and justice is perverted. The wicked surround the righteous. Every word comes from a wounded heart. How can a holy God allow this? Why does heaven seem quiet? Here is something powerful. God does not rebuke him for asking. God answers. Because God prefers honest questions over fake worship. Habakkuk teaches us that real faith does not pretend everything is fine. It brings pain directly to God. If this part already speaks to you, comment below. I still believe. Your declaration of faith might encourage someone else who is barely holding on. But God's answer was not what Habakkuk expected. God tells him that he is raising up the Babylonians, a violent and ruthless nation, to bring judgment on Judah. Imagine the shock. Habakkuk asks for justice and hears about invasion. He prays for intervention and receives a warning of destruction. How can God use a nation even more wicked as his instrument? Does that make sense? Is that fair? This is where we face one of the greatest mysteries of Scripture. God is sovereign even over empires. He does not approve of evil, but he can use it to accomplish his purposes. Nothing escapes his control. Still, Habakkuk speaks again. He acknowledges that God is eternal and holy, but admits he does not understand. He compares the Babylonians to fishermen who catch nations like fish and then worship their own power. His heart is torn. Have you ever struggled to reconcile what you know about God with what you are living through? Instead of walking away, Habakkuk makes a bold decision. He climbs up to a watchtower and says he will wait to see what God says next. He doesn't run. He doesn't quit. He stays. And sometimes, staying is the greatest act of faith. When we don't understand, when answers delay, when everything hurts, remaining in God's presence is already trust. Then God speaks again and gives a vision that would echo through history. The righteous will live by faith. God tells him to write the vision clearly so others can read it. Evil will not go unpunished. Pride will fall. Kingdoms will rise and collapse. But the righteous person will live not by strength, not by power, not by control, but by faith. This statement becomes one of the foundations of biblical faith. When the world feels like it's falling apart, God doesn't tell the righteous to trust circumstances. He tells them to trust him. God also declares judgment against Babylon's arrogance, violence, greed, and idolatry. This makes one thing clear: the apparent success of evil is temporary. The world may look out of control, but God's throne is not shaking. And at the end of this revelation comes a powerful statement: "The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him." This is not empty silence. It is reverent silence. The kind that comes when you realize God is still on the throne even when you don't understand his ways. From this point on, the tone of the book changes. The prophet who started by crying now begins to sing. The final chapter is a prayer in the form of a song. Habakkuk remembers God's mighty acts in the past. He describes his glory, his power, his majesty. He acknowledges that difficult days are coming, and still he chooses to trust. His body trembles, but his faith stands firm. Is it possible to have fear and faith at the same time? Yes, and that may be the purest kind of faith. Then we reach one of the most moving declarations in all of Scripture. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food,